Greetings and salutations, the annoyed engineer here. One of my friends said I don't seem annoyed enough. I just have to hit the right subjects. And this one tonight is about wind turbines. And this one does annoy the hell out of me for various reasons. So, is it a green energy? No, it is not. Not at all. When I went through the rant about photoelectric cells, same idea here. These big wind turbines are made out of steel. Therefore, you've got to mine the metal. You use energy to mine the metal. Then you've got to use a lot of energy and heat to form that metal into various parts, and you got to put it together. By the way, if you didn't know, these things are also full of oil because they got to be able to rotate. Now, when we look at wind, wind is a renewable. It's green. The earth creates it. We make use of it. However, you need to understand that you can only take a certain amount of the wind energy. There's a calculation been done to say that the maximum amount of energy you can take out of wind is 59.3%. I'm not going to bore you. You can Google this stuff. It's all over the place. Which makes sense. If you were to take 100% of the energy out of wind, the wind wouldn't be flowing. It needs to flow through basically the blades to be able to turn the blades. So you can't take 100% energy out of it. So that being said, you understand, you cannot take all the wind energy out of it. It physically doesn't work. Now, based on the most up-to-date information, a wind turbine's efficiency maxes out at about 50%. Now, this calls into two things, and this is where we got to get into the weeds a little bit about some technical crap. My engineering friends will probably be going, yeah, I understand this. But for the general public, there's efficiency and capacity factor. I've not talked about capacity factor. I'm going to have to now. So there's only a certain amount of energy you can take out of the wind. Again, most of the time, maximum is 50%. It's usually less than that. Just as a rule of thumb number, we'll say 35%. Capacity factor is how much of the, we'll say, nameplate, how much the generator can put out. How much of that can we get? Well, the problem is wind turbines is you've got to have enough wind speed to make them work properly. If they're going too fast, they become dangerous. You can have bearing problems. They spin too quick. The end of the blades can be doing a couple 100 miles an hour. So the perfect efficiency happens at a very specific air density, airflow rate. So I've got only a certain amount of efficiency I can take out of the wind. Then I have a certain amount of capacity, or basically availability, if you want to call it that way, of the generator itself. When you put the two together, they're not very efficient. It's more the fact that wind isn't consistent. You're kind of stuck with that. The other thing is you get variable amounts of current, which you got to kind of dampen in the electrical system. So if I compare this to coal, coal's burn efficiency is probably a little less than the amount of efficiency of energy we can get out of the air, but their capacity factor is way higher. It's more capable. Well, I stuff coal in it and it burns. Again, we're creating CO2. In the wind, really, we're not. Now, is there an effect on, are we changing wind patterns? I will say no. My biggest beef about wind power, a lot of times it's subsidized. The other one is reports are finally coming out of long-term projects overseas, and guess what? They don't pay for themselves. So they're not good economic. So they got to be subsidized. There's a huge report off of, I want to say Denmark, an offshore one. When they look at all the efficiencies and everything else, it's not the golden green energy everybody thinks it is. Now, my personal beef. Remember a couple of years ago, the media was all over the fact that a handful of ducks got killed in the tailings ponds, and it was all over the media, and it's toxic, it's terrible? Give me a damn break. How many birds of prey, birds and bats, do you think these wind turbines kill? I'll let you think about that. I've got the numbers out of the States. I worked at a company that worked on turbines, and when I found out, they had to do a study to figure out how many bats they killed and make sure that it was at an acceptable level. An acceptable level is 0. So chew on this little fact. A couple handful, we'll say a couple dozen ducks died on a tailings pond, and all these environments are standing up and trying to crucify the oil sands. That year, they estimated between 140 to 235,000 birds, bats, and big birds, raptors, which are one of my favorite animals, I love birds of prey, were killed by wind turbines. But you don't see that in the media, do you? No. Okay? It's studies. They allow a certain amount of kill. So when you guys get all bent out of shape and talk about how oil is bad and other industries bad and stuff like that, just remember the push for electric energy comes at a price. Wind farms, in my case, are not effective. They're hard to manage. A lot of the times when you go to places, you'll see all kinds of dead wind turbines everywhere. I challenge you to go take a drive out towards Palm Springs, and when you come over that hill and you see all that metal, all those wind turbines that are not running because they've just left them in place, and then you look at all the wind turbines way up on the hills that they've replaced them with, it's kind of eye-opening. And again, I go back to any environmentalist that stands in front of me and says wind power is good, I have a serious problem. They kill birds, tons of birds, thousands of birds. Think about that for a while. So there's a rant for you. That's an annoyance. And I'll get on this. Next things are coming up in a couple of these episodes. We're going to start talking about electric cars. So do you think I'm really happy with people switching to electric cars when we're killing hundreds of thousands of birds to get electricity for it? There we go. Now I'm starting to get annoyed. Hopefully you're starting to pay attention and getting an eye-opening that supposedly these green energies, there's a reason why they're subsidized heavily, and there's another reason why you don't see them in the media, because people are touting them in a certain way. Basically, the media wants to vilify petrochemicals. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.